Today, I will be talking about the Berlin Airlift. This was one of the first major events of the Cold War and showed the growing tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Berlin Airlift took place from 1948 to 1949. The Soviet Union blocked all land routes into West Berlin, hoping to force the Western Allies out of the city. In response, the United States and its allies flew in food, fuel, and supplies for almost a year. The main countries involved were the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. The event happened in Berlin, Germany, shortly after World War II. Germany had been divided into different zones controlled by the winning countries. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin wanted more control over Berlin and believed the Western Allies would leave if supplies could not reach the city. Instead, the United States organized a massive airlift to keep West Berlin alive. The Berlin Airlift was important because it was one of the first major confrontations of the Cold War. The Soviet Union thought West Berlin was cooked, but the airlift proved them wrong. It was a huge W for the United States and its allies. The operation, also low-key, showed the world that the United States would stand up to Soviet pressure without starting a war. The airlift successfully delivered millions of tons of supplies to West Berlin. Eventually, the Soviet Union ended the blockade because it was not working. The event increased tensions between the two sides but prevented direct military conflict. The Berlin Airlift helped strengthen relationships between Western countries and led to the creation of NATO. It also became one of the GOAT examples of peaceful resistance during the Cold War. The event showed that countries could respond to aggression without using military force. To summarize, the Berlin Airlift happened when the Soviet Union blocked West Berlin. The United States and its allies responded by flying in supplies. It was a major W for the Western Allies and became an important event that helped shape the Cold War. Now, for the next section, I will be talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis. This event is known as the moment when the world came closest to a nuclear war during the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis happened in October 1962. The Soviet Union secretly placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, which is only about 90 miles from the United States. When American spy planes discovered the missiles, a major international crisis began. The main countries involved were the United States, the Soviet Union, and Cuba. The most important leaders were President John F. Kennedy, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, and Cuban leader Fidel Castro. The Soviet Union placed missiles in Cuba to strengthen its military position and protect Cuba from future attacks. The United States saw the missile sites as a serious threat because they were so close to American cities. The missile bases looked extremely sus to U.S. leaders because they could be used to launch nuclear attacks. The Cuban Missile Crisis was important because it brought the world extremely close to nuclear war. No cap, many people feared that a conflict could start at any moment. The decisions made during those 13 days affected millions of people and changed how world leaders handled future crises. President Kennedy ordered a naval blockade around Cuba to stop more missiles from arriving. Both Kennedy and Khrushchev stayed locked in while negotiating a solution. Eventually, the Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba, and the United States agreed to remove missiles from Turkey later. The crisis led to better communication between the United States and the Soviet Union. A direct hotline was created so leaders could quickly contact each other during emergencies. Kennedy gained a lot of political aura after helping avoid a nuclear war. The event also encouraged both countries to work on arms control agreements. To summarize, the Cuban Missile Crisis began when the Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba. The world came dangerously close to war, but diplomacy prevented a disaster. It remains one of the most important events of the Cold War and shows why communication between countries is so important.